And so again, welcome to Women's Empowerment Workshop. Any handouts that the presenters have will be sent after the fact. Also, a recording of today's presentation will be sent to you all by email, but also will be posted on the Tailored for Success YouTube channel. So on behalf of our sponsor, Deloitte, I would like to welcome you to the Women's Empowerment Workshop. Again, if you feel comfortable, I would appreciate your keeping your cameras on so that we can see your smiling, beautiful faces. And it also gives us an opportunity to see that if we're going too fast, if we're going too slow or whatever, as presenters, it's really important to us. But if any time you need to shut your camera off, not a problem, just feel free to do that. Or if you don't feel comfortable with your camera on, we can certainly respect that. This workshop is part of our month-long celebration of Women's History Month and International Women's Day, which was on Monday, March 8th. The goal of this workshop is to demonstrate women empowering women. During these challenging times, we all need to use the resources available to us to obtain, retain, and advance in our professional journey. Especially when you look at the statistics published by Equal Pay Today, as of Wednesday, March 24th, which was actually Equal Pay Day, women on average make 82 cents on the dollar as compared to men. The statistics are worse for women of color, and I urge you to read more about this. I will put the website to Equal Pay Today in the chat. So with that said, it's up to all of us to take charge of our careers and utilize all the resources that are available to us. So our first poll was, in case you're just joining us, to put in the chat where you're calling in from today, so we can see where you're from. You know, just city is fine, city, state. But the second poll question that I would like to ask is, over the last year, what has been your biggest challenge, whether it's career, personal, or whatever? Just one word. You don't have to go into detail, but if you would share that, I think that would help all of us. And I thank you for that. So let's jump right into it. Our first speaker is Stacy Wiesbach. She's a career strategist and change consultant at Jobs Now. Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for having me. I'm very excited to be here. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be a part of this session. You know, I started my company 10 years ago because I believed we could do better empowering people in their professional change. So I love that we get a chance to talk more about that here today.
Great. Thank you so much, Stacey. So tell me a little bit about yourself, you know, your career journey, but also what is Jobs Now and what are the services that you provide?
So to understand my journey is really how the company came to be. I had, like many in my early 20s, had great success in a corporate life and consistently saw myself as a change agent within every organization I was in. And I really got to this point where I saw tech and innovation impacting how we were finding jobs, how we were changing jobs, how we were growing in our jobs, or how we were failing to grow in our jobs. And within every organization, people would always come to me about the tech solutions that I was bringing to them. Or, oh, I hear you introduced this to our COO and, you know, this is really innovative. How did you find it? And it was just sort of a natural part of my being. So when I finally got to this point in August of 2009, I was leaving a corporate life, taking some time off, and it was the middle of a recession. And you know, it was interesting to me that there was nothing simple about change at that point for me professionally. I lived in Washington, D.C., which by itself is a bubble, and said, well, we can do better than this. So I started investigating change management solutions. And I really loved the idea of consulting with other organizations to help them do better by their people. right? And it was ultimately change that is relevant to your best and greatest asset, which is people. So I took a bunch of certifications, courses, already had to be an undergrad was in journalism. So writing and communication was a strength for me already. And then getting certifications and masters and things in change management solutions and understanding behavioral science and all of the impact these things have on people and jobs and change. And then I didn't like the actual overall results I was getting with a lot of the solutions in the landscape of change. So either naively or because I have a mom who 100% believes that I could go to the moon if I wanted to tomorrow, I took a whiteboard, a bunch of notebooks, and started talking to people much smarter than me and mentors and said, what if I did this? And I basically created a change process that works for organizations or individuals, but is communication centric. So as a job seeker or an organization, you come to us and say, okay, this is what I want to achieve, right? This is my goal. Well, I hate to tell you this, but what you think is your goal is only a perceived goal. The actual goal is different, and it has to be broken up into two parts, right? So once I started doing that work, it was all over. I was in heaven. I had found my bliss, being able to help people find those light bulb moments and to achieve their goals through a process that they can replicate over and over and over. So 10 years ago, I launched Jobs Now, and here we are in a time where change is very difficult, unprecedented unemployment, right? And this time more than ever, our solutions are really key to helping people and organizations evolve in their own terms.
That's great. Wow. That's an amazing story. And I'm always interested in people who pivot due to one thing or another. And so that's a great pivot story. So I'll have to get you on my podcast at some point to talk about the pivot. So
thank you.
So talk to me a little bit about when a client reaches out to you, how do you start the process with them?
So individually,
as long as that's not giving away any proprietary
information. No. I will talk about our stuff all day long. In fact, we do free workshops every week that utilize some of our components for this very reason. I realized 10 years ago in building this individual process of change for people professionally, one of the requirements is that you volunteer, because when you don't have a job, right? If you're a job changer, meaning you already have a job, you're not required to volunteer because you're already connected to giving. But when you don't have a job, volunteering allows you to reconnect to that giving aspect, right? And that's super important. So for me to ask a client to do it, I also have to do it. So I volunteer to give workshops every week. We do them on Eventbrite. You can find them on the events link on our website. Email us at helps@jobsnow.com, and we can also send you the link. But the idea of starting the process is everything's a dialogue, right? And we always say nothing happens in one conversation. You have to have many conversations. So we like to say, if you're really interested in us, join our workshop, a few of them, because there's different ones with different topics for different reasons, because job seekers are not one-dimensional. We have to talk about searching from home versus working from home. A job seeker is not working from home. They're searching from home. That is so different now, right? Not just the search itself, but the space you're in. How are you dealing with the struggles emotionally? All of these things, right? We have resources and partners that we bring in on our sessions. Kevin Ty, who is a great photographer, who's a partner of ours as well. We're doing a session now that we're launching called Socially Successful. It's all about utilizing LinkedIn and developing your brand in the best possible way. We work with our clients to understand all of the aspects, what it is to be a job seeker, what it is to be a digital entity, right? Which is so important. We talk about all of these things. So it really depends on how the person meets us, because that first conversation like this, our first conversation, is very different than if, because I have a relationship with MIT and I present with them all the time and we get referrals from them all the time. You know, those people contact us because they've already seen us in a presentation, and they email to say, hey, I want to talk to you more. So that link that I added in the chat, that's a schedule of first dialogue, though we call those disco calls because they're fun. We get to learn about each other. We get to understand what each other's about. And I get to really learn a little more about what your real obstacles that you think are your real obstacles. And then I can say, okay, here are some other things we might recommend. Other solutions we provide, right? Because there's so many different ways we can provide a solution, and it's not cookie cutter. Everything is customized. The only thing that's cookie cutter is our process is involved in the solution every time.
Right. You know, and that reminds me of a conversation that we had early on, that a similar situation that we have, that sometimes job seekers think that, you know, just tell me what I need to do, right? Just make it quick. I want the quick fix.
Yeah.
If I follow 1, 2, 3 steps, I'll get the job of my dream. It doesn't work that way. You have to put the work in, you know. And I recently, someone had reached out to me to look at their resume and whatever, and I forgot to, you know, to have that dialogue first. I can't just tell you how to change your resume. We need to have a conversation about it first, right?
And this is why I love partnering with you, Elizabeth, because we tell clients, we're not resume writers. Right. No one can communicate your effectiveness better than you. Mm-hmm. And if somebody told you you can't, then they're failing you, because you should be able to talk about how valuable you are. You should be able to write about how valuable you are. And if you cannot do that, again, this is why our process is so valuable. It's communication centric. We want you to learn to be good at being your best advocate. We want you to identify when you're creating the roadblocks for yourself, right? Because we set ourselves up to fail because we're afraid we're not worthy enough, or our fear of some other person's going to be better at this than I am. You know, all those things are real. Yeah. But nobody else speaks for you better than you. You may not be able to write it out in the best way. And that's where help comes in, right? And we love being able to partner with Elizabeth for that, because I won't spend time looking at somebody's resume. That's not helpful for them from our perspective of what we do. We want to empower them to have that skill. So, and you're right, the immediate need for a quick fix, we have some very fast solutions that we believe are valuable and that can help, but we clarify this is not a quick fix. It will not get you a job immediately. It will help get you closer to clarity, and it will give you more opportunities to understand what's out there. But yeah, it's tough because especially during a time of unprecedented change, it's natural that we as humans think, I need something. Yeah, just something to hold on to. Give me something.
Right. And in actuality, that the something that you're giving, the dialogue and the clarity, will help them so much more than the quick fix, because you can't be in the interview with someone. They've got to be able to articulate their self-worth on their own. And that's the thing that I don't think people get as much as they should, is that you can go to all the coaches and change agents and whatever, but it's you and your prospective employer sitting down, having a conversation, and you convincing them that you are the best person for that position. And then conversely, you know, they need to convince you that you should be working there. That's always my thing. It's a two-way street here, right? Okay. So we drink the same Kool-Aids. Definitely. Thank you so much. So my last question, Stacey, is what advice would you give job seekers now that could help them in this changing and challenging labor market?
There's so many good points, right? This is tough because to narrow it down, I would say, if you are not going to listen to anything else I say today, just take this one thing. Consistency matters. If you are inconsistent in your outreach and relationship building, if you're inconsistent in your research of the company, if you're inconsistent about practicing your messaging, and by practicing, I mean, are you practicing talking about yourself off the cuff all the time? You have to be consistent. And that's really hard, because right now, with COVID creating all of this emotional turmoil, right? Our daily activities read like a bad EKG, right? They're all over the place. Yeah. And that's why our process was designed to eliminate that inconsistency. It's designed to be a gradual up. but every day you have activities, because if you had a job, you'd have a 20, 30, 40-hour work week. Our process is designed to do that because consistency is the first step to success. No one ever says, I'm going to go be an Olympian and I'm just going to go do it right now. They get up and they practice hard every day and they do the work and they fail every day and they succeed every day because they're consistent. They care enough to push. And that is the thing for job seekers, is you have to get out of your own way. And I hate to say it, but it's not about you.
Right.
It's about everything else. The only time it starts to be about you is when they start interviewing you.
Yeah.
So consistency, stick with it, build a schedule, create consistent relationships and outreach, search, do the work, spend the time, be consistent. That's the one goal.
That's terrific. And it's such a great point for people to keep in mind. And it is difficult in these times because, even myself, you get those peaks and valleys and you're like, okay, this is just not going to work. No one's going to come to my workshop, or, no one's going to hire me or whatever. But I think that's one of the reasons why I want to have this discussion today, is because you need to reach out to people who are going to energize you, keep you motivated, and say, you know what, you can do this. You can do this. I mean, you did it for me on our we signed in early, and, I know that Stacey has my back in case something goes wrong here. We all need that. Nobody is an island unto themselves. You have to rely on other people. I mean, that's really just all there is. So Stacey, thank you so much. So we're going to turn over now to Ashlie. And let me just introduce Ashlie for you. Ashlie works for Beacon Hill Staffing Group as Senior Account Executive. She focuses on finding the right talent for job opportunities. Most of her role is about making connections and playing matchmaker for candidates and clients. While her focus is finance and accounting, Beacon Hill has a wide range of divisions, and she would be happy to point anyone in the right direction. She will be going over tips and tricks on how to network and prepare for a job interview. Ashlie is located in Boston, but right now she's calling us from North Carolina. So welcome, Ashlie.
Hi, everyone. As Elizabeth said, I am currently in North Carolina, but I am living in Boston, and I do work for Beacon Hill Staffing Group. I have been there for the past 5 years of my career. I kind of fell into it, to be honest. When I graduated school, I was working a job that I had worked for in undergrad, and just kind of started working for their corporate office, but it wasn't my career. It was a job at the time, and I wasn't passionate about it. And a friend of mine had actually told me about recruiting and suggested a recruiting agency, and I went there to find a job. I didn't know much about recruiting. I actually knew very little. While I was there, I was interviewing. It ended up being quite a long interview because they ended up hiring me internally to be a recruiter for that company. So for the recruiting agency, it was a little bit of a whirlwind of a day, but I ended up keeping an open mind and accepting it, and truly found my calling. I worked there for a little while and then made the move to Boston about 5 years ago, and I've been with Beacon Hill ever since. It's a great company. As Liz mentioned, we do have several different divisions. I do focus on finance and accounting, but we have an associates division, legal, HR, life sciences. I'm making sure I don't leave anything out. Tech. We also have an internal recruiting team that finds, people to work for Beacon Hill in a role like I am in. I am a matchmaker, that's what we like to call it. We find talent on the market who maybe they're unemployed, or maybe they're in between careers, and then we find clients that have openings, whether it be a maternity leave, a medical leave, maybe they just are behind on something and they need an extra set of hands, or it's a permanent need, and we match up the skill sets, the personality, we make sure everything's aligns, and we end up with quite a few offers. So I specifically focus on temp and temp to hire, but we do have a permanent division as well. And that's pretty much it.
That's awesome. I will admit, first of all, I want to do our next poll because I don't want to forget, this is really important. So if you could put in the chat, have you ever utilized a recruiter in your job search? I'd be really interested to know. And I say 100 years ago, but it was only 20 years ago when I was working in private industry, in the legal industry, actually. I always use a recruiter for my job search, no matter, if I was leaving to get a better position in the legal industry or whatever. I was always the lazy job searcher, right? I went right to the people who know what they're doing. And recruiters are your best friend. And with that said, I think a lot of people are hesitant to reach out to recruiters because they think there may be a cost. So Ashlie, is there a cost for someone to use a recruiter?
There is not. If you are coming in as a candidate, it is completely free. And I think a lot of people haven't, like you said, they don't know that. And so it is a completely free service for candidates to use. If you are the one seeking a job, we will talk with you, walk through your background, walk through your resume. We will help edit it if you would like to, and you're open to that. But it will be a process where we actually, talk with you about it. We don't just send you a new copy. But where the cost comes in, because we're not a nonprofit, we do make money, is from the client. So when we find the right fit for the candidate, that's when we actually end up charging the client for placing you. And never is a cost to you. If you get a job through us, it is still free. If you don't get a job through us, it is still free to at least speak with us and consult with us. It never costs any money as a candidate to go through us.
Great. And one other thing too, I had noticed on a comment in the chat, and like I said, I have worked with recruiters myself, and sometimes it's not a fit, or the recruiter is not giving you jobs or offering opportunities to you that you think are good for you, or it just doesn't seem like it's working. What would you suggest someone does in that instance?
Well, there's plenty of agencies out there. We have plenty of divisions. If you feel like you're not seeing the types of jobs through a certain recruiter, it doesn't mean we're holding anything back from you. It doesn't mean we're hiding positions. We may just not have them at the time. We do like to keep an open list of our open recs on our website. So if you see something on there, definitely bring it to the recruiter's attention. And if for some reason, like Liz said, if you feel like you don't have a good relationship with the recruiter that you're working with, you can always request a new one. You can always chat with us. My team alone, we've grown so much. I think we have 12 people now just on the temp finance and accounting team. But Beacon Hill as a whole, we probably have like 2,000 employees. We're in like 52 different states. So there's someone that will talk to you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and sort of going back to what Stacy said, you've got to be your own self-advocate, right?
Yes.
So the recruiter's there to help you, and you need to articulate to them how you're feeling and what specifically you're looking for, but also understand that they're the experts and they know their clients, the companies that they're referring you to. Is that correct, Ashlie?
Yeah. And I think sometimes, a lot of people wonder what the benefit of working with a recruiter is. And that's one of the main ones is we have strong relationships with our clients. We work with clients that maybe aren't posting their jobs on their website. So we know of opportunities that you may not have even heard of unless you spoke with us or another agency. And so, we match that, like I said, that matchmaker of the right fit with the right candidate. And so we can also advocate for you. We fight for you. The way we make money is if we place you. So that is the goal. A lot of people wonder, they haven't sent me any jobs, or I haven't heard back. And we are doing the best we can. Our main goal is to get you into a job. And so working with a recruiter, instead of you just being a random resume with the hundreds others that are sent in, we kind of put yours at the top and we talk through your background with our client. We don't just say, oh, here's Jane's resume, take a look at it. We say, you know, this is why we think Jane's a good fit. She has this background, this industry, this skill set, her personality. We got this from her, and we think it would be a great fit with you. And so we fight for you. And I think that is a huge benefit of working with a recruiter. And you know, if you don't get the job, at least you have interview experience, possibly a new resume that's fixed up, and maybe some tips that you didn't know beforehand. So you never walk out completely empty-handed. You at least learn a little bit of something.
Right. That's a really, really good point. And you touched a little bit on this, that, you know, the recruiter fights for you,
Yeah.
versus when you're just applying to different job boards, and your resume has to go through applicant tracking systems, and there's no that the board is not going to fight for you, the recruiter will. So
Absolutely.
but on that same vein, there was a question in the chat about the competition that's out there now and how many applicants per job. I mean, I know, like my husband works in HR for this state, and he gets, over 200 applications, resumes for one particular position. Are you seeing the same trend?
Yes and no. I think with before, the shutdown in the pandemic, it was a little bit different. We called it a candidate's world. There were more jobs than candidates out there that were looking. And so I think a couple, companies and clients that we work with, they were just reaching out to every agency in hopes to, cast a wide net, which I don't blame them for. But we are usually working with the same network. So it can be a little difficult. When the pandemic happened, it flipped. We had great talent on the market and great candidates to work with, but not enough jobs. While unemployment is still high across the board, and mostly in entertainment or food and beverage industry, we've seen quite a change in HR and finance and accounting and legal and I would say pharma especially. So at least I can say with confidence with finance and accounting, unemployment rate is below 3%. So we are back to a candidate's world. We have more jobs than we do candidates. So while you may be hearing about the same position through a couple of agencies, I think it's just clients trying to cast a wide net, because even though we're still all working from home, or most of us are, the jobs are there.
Yeah, yeah. Two points on that. I have a relationship with one of the big six accounting firms, and they always want people to understand that when you think of accounting and finance, don't think of you just have to be a CPA to work there,
Yeah,
right? So there's so
absolutely.
many different positions, right?
Absolutely. Yes. We range from all levels we place entry level, accounts payable, accounts receivable, accounting assistant, all the way up to CFOs and controllers. You can get into analyst work, or you can be a bookkeeper, or an accounting manager. We have wide ranges, and we don't just work with public, we work with a lot of private companies as well. So you do not need a CPA to work in accounting. A lot of public companies will require it every now and then, or maybe a private company that is going public, because it's helpful, but you absolutely do not need a CPA. Majority of our candidates do not have CPAs.
Great, great. Thank you so much for that. And so I'm curious to know about the onboarding process now.
Yeah.
Is and I guess even just interviews, everything is virtual now, right?
Yes, so it is. We do have a handful of clients that are still on site, but majority are, it is all remote. Onboarding actually hasn't changed too much. We were already doing a lot of onboarding virtually. We would send out, we would have IDs be sent in to us electronically. We send out the offer letter electronically. We always use DocuSign for confidentiality agreements. So that all stayed the same. What is different now, instead of you showing up on your first day and having your equipment there and a desk, now we ship equipment out, and whether the client provides it, if they don't, we're happy to provide some of it. We provide monitors or headsets for certain roles. So that's changed a little bit. So finding out what address you're staying at if you're moving around like I am between Boston and North Carolina. But onboarding has stayed pretty much the same, which has been nice.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I don't think that people realize that it's up to the employer to provide you with what you need to do your job, the desktop, laptop, or whatever it is that you need.
Absolutely. And it's fine to be upfront and honest about that. And once you have an interview and you're working with a recruiter, speak to the recruiter, tell them, by the way, I, have a laptop or I don't have one, or I have an iPad, so I don't have a desktop. It'd be helpful if I had this. Let us know. And we're going to, provide you with what you need to be successful in the role. And I think you also mentioned, interviewing through Zoom and WebEx, and there's so many different systems that people use. I know for Beacon Hill, we use WebEx. It's been a great tool for us. I know a lot of people are using Zoom, and my biggest, and I mentioned this later when we break out into a session, when I go through my tips and tricks, download them all. Download Teams, download Zoom, download WebEx, because if you have an interview, you don't necessarily know right away what they're going to be using until you get the interview details, and you want to make sure the first time you're using it isn't for the interview. If you're using Zoom for the first time, you want to make sure it's not for that interview. You want to have it set up, an account set up under your name, and it's very helpful.
Oh my gosh, that is a great tip. Download them all, right? Exactly. Exactly. I think, let me just make sure I don't have any. Some people are interested in connecting with you, Ashlie and Stacey. No surprises there. So make sure you have your email and contact in the chat. So we are coming up on about 10:30, and this is where I wanted to kind of, I'm going to open it up for questions. So if people want to do live questions, feel free to do that. We're also going to do our fingers crossed, my wheel of names to find out who gets the opportunity to work with a really great guy, Kevin Ty. I mean, I have not heard anyone who has not met Kevin who hasn't absolutely fell in love with him. I mean, he's just got the greatest personality. And if you're getting a headshot done, this is who you want to go to, definitely. So does anyone have any questions? I'm going to take it off.
I do.
Oh, yes, please, Cynthia.
My first question is for Stacy. What's the difference between a career coach and a career strategist?
Love this question. Everybody thinks we're a coach. We're not.
Yes.
Coaches are the element of coaching, right? That supportive nature, that opportunity to provide objective perspective is a part of what we do, because yes, we support you. But I built an entire process, right? So it's all about strategy. It's about learning this particular process so that you can then work to find your own job. I always say we're the step before the recruiter. If you want to go to talk to Ashlie, if you can sit with me and tell me who you are, what you do, where you want to be, and why you belong there, if you can nail that within an hour, I will personally introduce you to somebody like Ashlie, or Ashlie herself, if it makes sense, right? But if you can't do all of those things, if you're lost on where the hidden job market is, if you don't understand how to communicate effectively and efficiently, and you've lost your confidence and you're afraid of discrimination and bias because they all exist, that's why you want a strategist, somebody to build a roadmap with you to identify what comes next. Because this isn't just about this one job. How many jobs are you going to have in the rest of your career? Right. What does that path look like? Only you can define it. Gone are the days where companies invested in building a career strategy for you.
Perfect. Yes.
And if you don't understand what that looks like, then your company can't support you, or your recruiter can't support you, right? Nobody can give you what you want until you tell them what it is.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm sorry, Stacey.
No, that's it. So strategy is different than you coming to me and saying, I need my confidence back. I need to learn how to do, and a coach is great because they give you the fundamentals. We are teaching our specific process and giving you all the tools with a custom approach, because each one of you on this screen has a different challenge. Each one of you learns differently. Each one of you has different education, different experience. I have to create a process around what works best for you. So that's where the strategy also comes into play.
That's great.
Thank you.
And I'll add the caveat that when I did work with recruiters, first of all, a little bit about me. I'm a nerd about career stuff. I mean, that's what I do. That's who I am. That's what I read. That's what I think about, even before I started Taylor for Success. And so when I went to a recruiter, I knew exactly what I wanted, and my career trajectory, I don't think I ever really talk about this, except the last time that Ashlie and I were together. We were in a breakout room, and it was just like, okay, let me just tell my story. But, I worked from clerk typist to secretary to legal secretary to paralegal, and then went to law school. So, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Not everybody does. Not everybody does. Not everybody sits on Sunday and reads before. I'm dating myself, the want ads, right? I do that. But so you need someone to help you with that. Maybe the reason why you're not seeing results in your job search is just that you just don't, you're not focused enough. And I think that whether unemployment is high or low, you need to be laser focused, because this is your career, right? This is what you're going to be doing 7-8 hours a day. So I'll get off my soapbox about that.
I love that you say it, because, our priority is your clarity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if nothing can go forward if you don't have that, right? So our process is designed with you in mind. It's the first principle. You with a question mark is who you are when you come to us. When you leave, you're no longer you, you're now you.
Yeah.
And you're standing around going, me, look at me, right? That's what we want. And that's what a recruiter needs, is someone who has that clarity to represent them well in an interview, right? Because you're representing the recruiter that says, I believe in you. And Ashlie and her team work really hard to make those connections possible so that you have all the advantages. It's your job to pick up the rest of that, opportunity and blow it out of the water.
Right.
And that's really where that clarity comes into play. So I love that question. Thank you, Cynthia.
Great. Any more questions?
And I want to mention, I was trying to keep an eye on the chat while I was chatting, but and I hope I'm saying Brianna or Brianna, when you mentioned competition, if there's an industry that you're in that maybe maybe unemployment is still very high, the biggest thing I can say is be open to contract work. Employers like to see that you're working. So if you are in an industry that maybe it's a little bit difficult to find a position, always be open to contract work. It sharpens your skill sets. You may learn a new skill set. You're still networking and meeting with new people. It may be an assignment for 3 months. It may be an assignment for an entire year. That assignment may turn permanent if you're the right fit. So I always say, be open to contract work. I think it can be one of the best tools, and a lot of people have found their career that way. Maybe it was a position that they weren't completely in love with, but you want to work, you want to show employers that you're working. Maybe that role leads you somewhere else in the company, or maybe you meet people and it can take you somewhere else, or you learn a system like SAP or Oracle that you wouldn't have had before, and now you have that and you can take that to a different job. So I can't advocate enough for contract work, and always be open to it.
Right, exactly. That's a really good point. And and remember too, just like Stacy said earlier, volunteering, right?
Yeah.
Employers like to hire people who are working, right? So it's almost like stealing from the competition or something like that. But they like to hire people who aren't just sitting at home saying
waiting for the jobs to come to them.
Yeah, it's just not. I'm a straight shooter, and I'm just oh, woe is me, because you know what? Everybody has a woe is me story, but can you pick yourself up? Can you just stay in the game? Just stay in the game.
And the contract work doesn't need to be your career. It could be just a job right now that could lead you to your career. So, obviously, if you find contract work in the career path that you're interested in, that's even better. But just be open and keep an open mind.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that, and this will be a really quick story, and then we'll go to the breakout rooms, because, when I was starting Tailored for Success, I had to work part-time, but I could not work full-time in a law firm. It just wasn't going to happen. And so I took a part-time job while I was building the agency, and it was only supposed to be a year contract. I was there for 5 years. I loved it. I love the people. And if I wasn't starting my own business, I'd still be there, and I'm still in contact with those people today. So another thing, don't burn bridges, because, you never know That's a whole nother
You
workshop.
never know. The world is so much smaller than we think. And
Yeah.
to add to that quick story, I just have a quick one. My little sister, I actually, when I was working for an agency down in North Carolina, she graduated school. She came to us, and I got her in a 2-week temp job. It was supposed to be 2 weeks, and that was it. They ended up converting her after 2 weeks, and she is still there 6 years later. So you never know.
You never know. You absolutely never know. Okay, so we're going to stop now. I'm going to pause the recording. I'm not going to record in the breakout rooms. And so give me a minute to get everybody in the breakout rooms.